now players, I've seen this discussed, with college football athletes and or college athletes getting paid, the NIL money and or otherwise, and eventually the revenue sharing. I've seen kind of a debate about whether or not that makes them free game when it comes to criticism. I saw some barking back and forth between a couple of Baylor parents and some fans, and one of the responses from the fan was, hey, they're getting paid now. So we will discuss that. In fact, we'll get to it sooner rather than later. SMU quarterback Kevin Jennings, Taylor McCark from CBS and ESPN, Brandon Marcello from 247 as a part of what we do today on 365 Sports. And in a moment, a note about Baylor men's basketball with a 5-star player making the decision to play for Scott Drew and company. Paul, do you think with players now getting paid, it was always kind of a, doesn't mean they at times message boards or whatever, maybe a booing was a little bit different in a college atmosphere, but now that they get paid, are they open to more criticism and that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially, the same way of professional athletes, if you were going to ask, NIL and collectives are coming from fans directly.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm directly paying a school to go pay these players, I'm going to feel like I have more of an opinion on it. Now, does that mean I have the right to be uncivilized? No. You should be civil, but I do think that a bit of fair criticism, that's life too. Like, okay, one of the things we like that gets put into this is that these guys are adults. They're of legal working age. They can serve in the military. They can drink beer at 21. Like all these things. Well, guess what? If you're a legal working adult and any job, bull crap rolls down, from the top of the hill, right? And this is what happens when you get paid to do things. Whether you get paid minimum wage or $1 million, you get criticized.
I saw this note that
it's part of life.
In this show, there are some that watch us because they're masochists. They don't like my opinion or our show, and yet they'll tell us that in the chat room, and that's fine. People usually come and watch us every day, 3 to 6, because they like the content.
Say whatever you want about me, just say my name right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the old thing. I remember I learned that from Dale Hansen, the former television anchor in Dallas. He said, listen, you can criticize me all you want. Just make sure you spell or say my name correctly. So, but I saw a little back and forth, and I saw some responses that like, hey, your kid now is getting paid. He's an employee, although that's a term that's not yet used and may never be used. But I was curious about that and what your feedback is. We'll get to some of those of you who are in the chat room and your responses to that here in just a moment. Now, here is a list of the unbeaten teams that are not used to being unbeaten in college football. Cole Kublik from the SEC Network and ESPN with his note. Indiana, first time since 1967. UNLV in the top 25, Barry Odom, first time since 1978. 5-0 Duke, 1994. Iowa State 4-0 for the first time in 2000. A lot of times they couldn't get to that fourth game unbeaten because they couldn't always. Iowa was a problem. Pitt, first time since 2000. Rutgers, they're playing at Nebraska this week, first time since 2012. Navy, 4-0 for the first time since 2017. These aren't the only teams 4 or 5-0. There's a bunch of them. But those are long droughts of teams who are unbeaten.
Alabama wakes up for it.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So Georgia wakes up. Well, Georgia's not, right? But, Georgia's not undefeated. But, those teams, Texas has many 4-0 seasons. Actually, usually Texas's disappointing seasons are when they're 8 or 9-0, and then they lose 2 at the end, right? Like that's been the ones that like get them where they're rolling along well, and then they get got later on in the season. But this is great. I wonder what kind of pressure Indiana being 5-0 is going to put on some of the rest of the Big Ten that have been middling for quite a while.
All right, so when when Nebraska lost that game that we traveled to go watch in Lincoln to Illinois, they're now 4-1 because they beat Purdue. But they now play unbeaten Rutgers, unbeaten Indiana, and probably unbeaten Ohio State. That's their next three. So teams like Indiana and Rutgers are going to make it difficult for some of the teams who are trying to get to a certain point, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good, so it'll be interesting. You lose one of those games, and they're good, then and you get on the wrong side of the algorithm of the Big Ten, those two teams are scoring a bunch of points. Rutgers, as you even heard, what was it, Tim Brando, their running back, is among the best in America right now. So yesterday was the day for UTEP in the Mountain West Conference to rejoin it, and John Teicher was on our show, the voice of UTEP. Today, Texas State put out this statement. The recent interest shown in Texas State and its presence across college athletics and the landscape speaks volumes about the university and the work our staff and student athletes have done to build the Bobcat brand nationally. After preliminary discussions with an interested conference, we have decided not to make the change at this time. Looking forward to watching all of our sports continue to compete, Sun Belt Conference, and also for national championships. So they're out of the realignment game for now. Did they make the right decision?
I think so. Look, if it's not going to be better, then like what if it's not going to be better, if it's not going to be guaranteed to be better, then don't do it. I still get the feeling that maybe them saying no to the Mountain West is also like yelling out to the Pac-12, like, hey, we said no to them. Mm-hmm. But, let's see what it is. But if they stay in the Sun Belt, they stay in the Sun Belt. Yep. If that's the best thing for them, that's the best thing for them. Again, Mountain West and Pac-12, just merge. Like, here's the thing. Add who you want to add, and then when you get to your 8 or you don't get there, then just go, okay, this has been a fun little dance we were playing. Let's stop playing checkers and start playing chess together, and let's merge.
Speaking of a team that also had interest from elsewhere, the Tarleton State, they've gone from, again, the transition to become a part of the NCAA higher level. A note that I received from somebody from Tarleton State, it's important to note that we have not yet received an offer from the Mountain West Conference or presented to their board of directors and / presidents. So that means you can't make a decision if you haven't been offered. It's like a commit. How many times, like 1 out of 500, a kid says, I'm committed to Kansas State, and they didn't even offer him. So you can't commit to a school if they haven't offered you, although if you're pretty good, they're going to find you and say, no, we're going to offer you. You're pretty good. So there's that with Tarleton State. Brett McMurphy on the Pac-12. Pac-12 still needs one more full member, but the league won't be adding anybody at least until their media rights evaluation is completed. This could take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months. Several schools continue to reach out with interest in joining the Pac-12, but the league is currently not negotiating with any schools about membership. And on top of that, Paul, this is a note from John Wilner, source on the Pac-12 expansion. Gonzaga changed the chessboard, opened up some opportunities. Some of the schools previously linked to the conference are not fully off the table.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they weren't. I'm sure that maybe if they come back and they can go to those AAC teams or something and say, hey, here's what we have now. How does this work for you? But the previous offer on the table wasn't anything that, we heard from the Memphis AD. He wasn't anything that made it necessary for them to move.
I was going to bring that up, that maybe they go back to them with something that's a little bit better, a little more spice to it. After, again, it was pretty obvious last week. At the end of the week, Memphis AD said, listen, it's just not that time. Doesn't mean it won't be. So John Wilner again, Gonzaga changed the chessboard, opened up some opportunities. Some of the schools previously linked to the conference are not fully off the table. And again, that could be some of the schools we've seen. We've kind of churned through those names of who that might be.
I don't think, when it comes to the group of 5 and conference realignment, I don't think anything's ever off the table for any of them ever,
either.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can't, I couldn't, if Texas State says that we're in the Sun Belt, and you read the thing, at this time, we're no longer negotiating. That's everybody at this time. That's across, the Power 4 as well, but it's a little bit more difficult in there. But in the G5, I think you're always just waiting for the next thing because you have to keep your options open. So if you were that, you'd be stupid to be like, we Toledo are never leaving the MAC for any reason whatsoever. And then if the Mountain West came to you and said, how about for double your money? You'd be like,
yeah.
We've been in the MAC for a long time. We need some new booty.
It could be millions of dollars difference. It could be very minimal. But by the way, back to the Brett McMurphy tweet. Won't be adding another school until media rights evaluation is completed. We have seen the Pac-12 drop the ball on that in the past. So hopefully they get it all together. And again, a lot of this is quick, fast-paced. Things are flying left and right, like high winds, and you like worry about a limb or whatever else it might be. But there we are with a little bit of the expansion with Texas State, Tarleton State, and also what the Pac-12 has to do next. Now, look at this note. Football. We will have, after today, it's October 2nd. It is the last day without college football or NFL until November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving. Starting tomorrow, 55 consecutive days of football. 55 consecutive days of football, whether college or NFL, loaded up across the board up until the Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving. I like, you want to get your fix? There's no lulls. Today's it, and then 55 consecutive days of college or NFL football coming your way.
Yeah, because I guess we get Maction, right, from now on?
Yep.
Yeah, so speaking of the MAC, we get Maction from now on. If you're a football junkie, this is your time. This is the people who just love it. Now, I don't really get too much into the Maction. Usually I use my Wednesday nights to, do something else. Shift down.
I have a game always on. If there's a football game, I've got 2 or 3 of those big screens, and I'll have the Maction. I'll have them up, whether it's Toledo or whoever it might be, on in the background. Craig Smoak joins us as well today on 365 Sports. We brought this up, Greg. We'll have Kevin Jennings, SMU quarterback, at 3:30. Brandon Marcello in about an hour. And then at 3:40 or so, Taylor McCarrick from CBS and ESPN. Greg, players are now getting paid. We know that. I've seen a little bit of the discussion. I'd written this down even a week or two ago. Could have said this a couple months ago. But with NIL money, with players now getting paid, not everybody, but student athletes in general in college athletics getting paid, and then on top of that about to have revenue sharing, does it change your mind or opinion on how you or should people be able to criticize a college athlete?
Yeah, well, good to be here. What's up, chat, and everybody else? And hopefully whatever clogged up I-35 in the last few minutes, hopefully everybody's okay. Looked like an 18-wheeler was involved, so we'll see. But a lot of people still waiting back there. Hope everybody's okay. To answer your question, I don't know. I definitely feel like some people have taken this as an open season to be able to criticize players however they choose now. And I don't think that was ever really the case. I think even the biggest a-holes in the world knew that you don't really go after the players in college athletics. That's just sort of not what you do, because they weren't getting paid, because they weren't getting a lot of what they deserved to get. Now I feel like those people, and then many others who maybe hadn't really thought about it, are now let's use Baylor as an example. It's just right here. There's a lot of people popping off on burner accounts saying a lot of things that I don't think they'd be saying if these players weren't getting paid. And why I know that is because, we're paying we're paying NIL money for wins. We're not paying money for you guys to just, have money and be average and be bad. It's for wins. So people who are donating to collectives, they're expecting wins in return. And I'm sure there's people who are just doing it out of the kindness of their heart, and they want Iowa State athletes to just be well taken care of. But there's also that element of people who are doing it because they want to see wins and nothing less. And when they don't see that as often as they would like, or in the situations that they would like, there has been some lashing out that I've noticed this year more so than ever before. Not that it was completely non-existent, but I do feel like people believe now there's this open door, and there is no longer this separation of the student athlete, especially when you're being told, stop saying student athlete. That's not a term. You're telling us that it's not anything but basically pro football at this point, so people are going to treat it like pro football because every single arrow points at it being more pro football than college football as we knew it. So you know what? I think to some extent, there's a point to be made of so everybody just gets treated with kid gloves, but you get treated like pro athletes in every other regard. I can see where you have a little bit of a problem with that. I do think there's obviously people that take it too far. So it's to answer your question, yes, there's definitely more of that. But is it all unwarranted? No, I don't think necessarily, because I do feel like, hey, you opened this door now where it is more pro sports and people are getting paid large sums of money to win games as your quarterback. And when they don't win, maybe you laid off a little bit because it was just Bo from Tuscaloosa who was on scholarship. But now Bo's got a Lambo and he's got a penthouse in downtown Tuscaloosa and he's throwing picks every game. And you want to see something better than that. So, yeah,
Well,
it's been interesting.
I think, and I said it before you came here, Craig, but, you know, when I'm paying a professional athlete, I'm just buying a ticket to the game, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm doing is I'm going and buying a ticket to the game, or, you know, I'm paying for my cable subscription or whatever, and all that revenue that I'm doing, that I would be doing anyway, paying a ticket to the game or watching television goes to the player of their part of it in the collective bargaining agreement. But when NIL is, hey, Craig, can you donate $5,000 a year so these players can have money?
Especially when it's a school that's already asked you for
exactly.
like 5 other things already. Yeah.
So, then you're like, well, now I feel like I have some agency in this because I know that this money is directly going to them, is where I know that like part of my ticket goes to the players, but I know that the $5,000 I just spent at NILX, then that is definitely going to these players.
Yeah,
and I might even specifically say, like, I want my $5,000 to go to make sure we get a quarterback.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I mean, I saw what's the guy's name? The Barstool, whatever.
Portnoy?
Portnoy said, I want to give $1 million for Michigan to find a quarterback in the portal.
And I'm sure he will. And he, you know, is a guy who's a very big Michigan supporter and leans into, the Connor Stallions, like probably made a few million off of just talking about that. Smart business guy. But, yeah, I mean, I think there's some investment on the part of people who do pony up, whoever ponied up to get, you know, the 5-star quarterback specifically. It's not the same as when you donated that same amount of money for the indoor and the colored waterfalls and the whatever new facility. Now it's like, no, I helped get this player. He's not cutting it, or this coach isn't, or, you know, whatever.
Right.
I think it's just taking the blame from being all entirely on a head coach that you feel like you've invested in to now it's being spread over the roster. And so, I think that was unavoidable with NIL, and that just comes with the territory. There's already been some people that have definitely crossed lines, I feel like, because there still is an element of, like, it's not entirely pro athletes, but the line's blurry now. Like, the line's blurry, and so that's led to some blurry behavior, I think, and just some differences in behavior now than versus basically the entire existence of college football before the last couple of years.
I think criticism is something that across the board fans can use because they're paying their way to whatever, even if it's their favorite team. The college athlete has always been usually pretty protective unless they've done something that's a little bit that puts them out there more, whether it's a cockiness thing or they got themselves sideways or you just don't like them. But I still think you can criticize. You can boo DJU. You can boo a player that you just feel like is not, but you don't have to get like insulting. But then again, it's hard. Most of the time, I just saw that. I said this, Craig, when you weren't here yet, that there were back and forth over the weekend with Baylor parents, football players, a mother, and some fans. And she was talking about this and that. And, of course, they had players missing, et cetera. And then one of the fans goes, listen, ma'am, your son's getting paid. I'm sorry.
Right.
If he doesn't play well, he's going to hear from us, or me, or whoever it might be. So that remains to be seen exactly how all of that irons out in the end. How are you doing? So Craig was a little bit late to traffic on 35, but I asked Paul this. You weren't here yet. When did we start allowing certain services to tell you when you need to be at home when they're trying to do customer service for you who's the customer?
Oh, I don't know.
You had a cable appointment.
Well, yeah, because what happens, you go to an appointment and, hey, I needed new equipment. So I got this alert, this letter in the mail and then an email of your equipment's outdated. It's not what we use anymore. By September 30th or whatever it was, like, it's no longer going to function. So come by and go pick up your new equipment, which Paul's point yesterday was like, so I've got to go get the equipment. You don't bring it over to me. So that's number one. So I did it, not a big deal. And then I go to plug it all in last night, and I do it exactly as it says, and it doesn't work. the connection's not right. So then I stayed on the phone for 2 hours last night, just waiting the entire time. And, of course, the lady doesn't know how to fix it because why would she, right? Mm-hmm. So then I have a guy get called out today and have this 2 hour window that now I'm waiting for this 2 hour window after the 2 hours last night, going to get the stuff yesterday, just for them to get my stuff working. So I don't know when all that started, but yeah, we're punks when it comes to that. And
is it working now?
Yeah, it's working now, but it took me 2 hours on the phone, 2 hours waiting around today, 30 minutes yesterday, and whatever, it's fine. It's just part of the deal. But yeah, we really did ourselves a disservice in terms of the customer service that we get a lot of times. But yeah, now I can, watch some action tonight. Whereas yesterday I was just on Netflix or whatever I was doing while I was writing.
Sunbelt and Max, someone Heisman, I forgot the first name that I responded to him, that I think it might be the Sunbelt that early on has some games during the week, and then Max and Sunbelt maybe this. But there's games during the week over the next 55 days. That's the good news. Football. Get your fix whenever you can. From Conundrum, if the court treats them like an adult, then so do I on athletes.
Yeah, I think that, but there's also, just manners. It's fine to criticize. I don't have a problem coming out and saying this quarterback didn't play well. Stating facts and criticizing college athletes, that's fine, but you shouldn't be rude. That's the thing
Don't go into a message board or forums, even though we love for you to go into SicEm365.com, because that's like entering, you never know. I mean, you're going to be either someone who could walk on water or somebody that needs to be needs to disappear, and based on some of those comments. All right. Kevin Jennings around the corner. Craig, again, Texas State says no. Tarleton State still has not yet been officially offered anything, as we kind of, not a real busy day today after what happened yesterday with UTEP and also the Mountain West Conference.
I guess they'll get it sorted out. I felt like Texas State had their entry into the Mountain West if they wanted it, and obviously they didn't want it. So to our guy who was messaging in the chat or whatever it was yesterday, worried about Texas State, I think they're fine. I know you're probably looking for some activity, and yesterday I said, who the heck knows? It looks like they have a route into the Mountain West, and beyond that, maybe the Pac would be interested trying to get into Texas or whatever. That didn't appear to be the case, and obviously the Mountain West is now off the table, but, that seems to be as much Texas State's call, just like it was a lot of the American teams to stay where they were. There's clearly not an enticing offer that just bowls you over where you're like, yep, got to say yes. So, yeah, we'll see where they end up. They're a program, though, that's got a lot of momentum and a great location and a lot to like, with G.J. Kinney at the helm for however longer that might be, probably a year or two at max, given his trajectory. But, that's something that's definitely notable in this round. That's been a lot of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, commitment here, never mind I'm backing out, we're not going here, wait, never mind, yeah, we might. And so it seems like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off trying to figure out what the best solution is for them as individual schools. And some have done that, and some are clearly, like Texas State, still figuring out what that best solution is. But, yeah, it's not going to be the Mountain West. So I guess that just, for those who want to argue Pac versus Mountain West superiority, I think the Pac's definitely got the upper hand, and particularly without a Texas State joining the Mountain West.
We have our pod today in the Big 12, and guys, I have to admit, is it the Four Corner pod? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go. Two days in a row.
Yesterday, the Bowlesby pod, the Big 12 South, Big 12 North, and now the Four Corners pod. Arizona, Colorado, Arizona State, Utah. A lot to talk about with all of them. That'll be today in the 5 o'clock hour.